So we all know lots of people love Disney and Square Enix, but they were forced to love them separately until one game dared to say,
¿Por qué no los dos?
When I was a kid, Kingdom Hearts was quite possibly one of the coolest things ever. Here's a brief summarization of my feelings when learning about it. Holy crap, all my favorite Disney characters all in one place, and there's this kid with a sword that's also a key. Cool, I've never seen that before, and the music's cool too, and the villains look scary. This looks epic. Of course, I had never played a Final Fantasy game and was unfamiliar with what would become the Square Enix storytelling method. Make it as convoluted and complicated as possible so people don't know how not good the story is. But seriously, this concept is kind of insane. Take Disney characters, then cross them over with the Square Enix characters, while also injecting a mythology unique to this specific series and roll it all up into one game. How on earth did they manage to get this made? Well, it all started with a conversation between Shinji Hashimoto, a producer of Final Fantasy VII, and Hironobu Sakaguchi, president of Square Enix and director of Final Fantasy Spirits Within. They wanted to make a game that allowed you to move freely in 3 dimensions like the recently released Super Mario 64, but they felt only Disney characters could come anywhere near the popularity of Mario. Luckily for them, character designer Tetsuya Nomura overheard and offered to lead the project as long as they let him direct. Of course, getting Disney characters would be next to impossible unless one of them just happened to bump into a Disney executive. Yeah, you know where this is going. Hashimoto just happened to do that in an elevator, and he was given the unique opportunity of pitching the idea directly to Disney. You'd think, however, saying as, it's Disney, that they'd push around the much smaller company to get what they want, but no. Apparently Nomura turned away quite a few proposals from Disney and said,
"Nah, dog, we doing this my way. And the main character, he ain't gotta be no Disney character, he gotta be my character, ha ha."
And thus began the project, a massive undertaking involving members of both Square and Disney Interactive production teams working together on one game and making gaming history. Nomura had a lot to say in the game, being the director, and used his experience as a character designer to design the 3 main characters and the villains himself. Originally, Nomura was going for a simple story to appeal to Disney audiences, focusing on gameplay, but Hashimoto and Sakaguchi told him,
"Man, you seen some other games? Don't we gotta play some simple ass shit to convolute this shit up."
And so he did. A lot.
Speaking of the story, it's all about... Let's just start at the beginning. It's easier that way.
The game starts with an awesome music video. No, seriously, it's literally just a music video. Later we learn this is a dream Sora is having, and the lack of sense makes more sense. The music video takes us to the first screen of the game, in which we begin building our character. This really only affects your stats at the end, so I'm not sure why it tries to use dialogue to figure out your personality. This is not an RPG where you make character decisions and shape their personalities. Sora is the same no matter what you decide. His character, or lack thereof, cannot be changed by the player. This isn't a bad thing, of course, it's just another way to tell a story in a game. And I'd argue that for this series, having the personality be at the mercy of the player would diminish it. Firstly, you need to choose your weapon. A sword, a shield, or a wand. This will determine your character's stats and will affect how you fight your enemies. Well, kind of. I always choose the sword, because bitches love swords. And as a promise of what to come, we get an awesome fight with a giant monster that we will soon learn is a Heartless. This was a great move on the developer's part. The opening of the game is slow, and this whets your appetite for not only the Disney stuff, but for the awesome fights you're gonna have with all these monsters. It may not be terribly impressive now, but kid me thought this was amazing.
Holy, what is that? This is awesome.
The game proper starts with Sora waking up from a dream and...
Hey, what's this? An island? Where are the Disney characters? Sora kind of dresses like Mickey Mouse a little bit, I guess, but that's not good enough. Where's the stuff I was promised? I feel so betrayed right now.
Yeah, the first 30 or so minutes of gameplay have no Disney characters. It spends this time having us get to know the characters we'll be following throughout the series. And while this was frustrating as a kid, I now see how smart the decision was. We have no Disney characters distracting us, so we're forced to focus on these characters and get invested in their story whether we like it or not. It wouldn't make sense for them to give us everything we wanted right away. If they did that, we'd have nothing to look forward to, and we'd have less incentive to finish the game. Tell me, if the game had started off immediately with you fighting side by side with Mickey Mouse and all your other favorite Disney characters in the first scene, would this series be anywhere near as popular? I'm sure a few of you out there are going, yeah, but the cold, hard truth of the matter is there's a reason audiences don't create media for themselves. What you think you want isn't what you actually want. To give you everything the game was promising within the span of 10 minutes would completely drain the concept and leave us feeling very hollow and unfulfilled. This way we get what we want, but in doses big enough to make us happy, but small enough to keep us wanting more. Some would call this corporate greed, and yeah, it is, but it's also a way to prolong our enjoyment of the games. Anyway, I've gone off track, let's get back to the game. So as Sora, you go around and are introduced to the gameplay mechanics a bit at a time within the story. I've always preferred this kind of teaching mechanism to the boring method of just walking you through moves and destroying my suspension of disbelief. Over the course of this whole opening sequence, we meet Sora's best friends, Kairi and Riku. The internet will proceed to ship Sora with both of them. One of these is canon, and the other is really popular to draw on DeviantArt. Sora and Kairi have what you'd expect, a cute little blossoming romance that will in no way be interrupted by evil trying to corrupt the multiverse. Sora and Riku, meanwhile, have a very competitive friendship. Riku is older and tends to be condescending towards Sora, even if he succeeds where Riku can't. Also, he always wins that stupid race, so I want to name the raft Enterprise, but no, Riku won the race, so we're gonna call it Highwind. What a stupid name. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead a bit. It turns out Kairi's not actually from the island. She doesn't know where she's from. She just washed up on the island a while ago, making the three wonder what might exist beyond their world. Riku, mostly. Sora's like 12 and still trying to figure out why his crotch feels funny when he looks at Kairi. Nevertheless, they build a raft together and intend to sail away on it to go on an adventure. I guess parents don't exist in this world. Wait, no, they do.
Sora, dinner's ready. Come on down.
They just don't appear on screen like in Charlie Brown. Anyway, after you complete the first island sequence, we finally get to see some Disney characters. Oh, look, it's Donald, and oh no, Mickey's missing, and Goofy's there too, and he's a knight, and Donald's a wizard, and oh look, Minnie and Daisy are mad, and
What? We're back on the island? Why? Why are you doing this to me? Why have you betrayed me again? I will never trust you again, game. Never. Ever.
So yada yada yada, you go through more island stuff, finishing up the raft, and
What? Who's there?
I've come to see the door to this world. One who knows nothing can understand nothing.
Okay, creepy cloak guy, I can dig it.
from here, things really kick off. The kid's ready to board the raft the next day. I'm not sure if they told their parents about this little development or not. I'd hope so, though if they did that and their parents were okay with it, that wouldn't bode well either. I'm just not gonna think about it because it doesn't matter anyway, because the apocalypse happens. Kairi looks sleepy and turns into a ghost, Riku goes crazy and lets himself get taken by dark energy, and Sora ends up being transported to Final Fantasy Land. Traverse Town, in which we finally meet up with some Disney characters, mainly Pluto, Donald, and Goofy. And from here, the adventure begins as Sora mysteriously acquires the Keyblade when it literally appears in his hand, and he's told he now has to save multiple worlds from the oncoming apocalypse. Now, I'm not going to go into explaining every world in detail, but I'm going to comment on them as a whole. If I tried to explain the Kingdom Hearts plot in lots of detail in this video, it would go far too long, and I'm not going to do that to you people or myself. The levels, or worlds in this game, are as follows: Destiny Island and Traverse Town, which you've already been acquainted with, Wonderland, Olympus Coliseum, Deep Jungle, 100 Acre Wood, Agrabah, Monstro, Atlantica, Halloween Town, Neverland, Hollow Bastion, and the End of the World. Then there's two only seen in cutscenes, Disney Castle and the Pride Lands. The worlds that would appear in the game were chosen according to what would bring the most variety in gameplay and look to keep the players interested. On the whole, the stages are unique and fun, offering different ways in interacting with some of our favorite Disney characters. Sometimes we follow the plot of the Disney movies, helping out the characters in reaching what is more or less the conclusion of the films. And sometimes it's just a story tied to the universe and the characters, but mostly original. It's a good thing they did this, giving us some familiarity so that there's not too much of a disconnect, but also mixing it up a bit so we don't get bored following stories we already know the whole game. Your overall goal was just this: kill as many Heartless as possible. You gotta love me a game in which Disney characters encourage you to kill as many mofos as you can find, and actively help you to do it, no less. Oh, and something about locking doors between worlds and keeping evil from consuming them, but whatever. Donald and Goofy serve as your companions in this quest, which was a great move. Goofy and Donald have a great dynamic, and giving Sora the straight man role, usually served by Mickey, made him fit right into it no problem, and helped us connect to their friendship over the course of the games. Of course, Sora also takes over this role because originally Mickey was going to be the main character of the game, hence why Sora dons red pants and big yellow shoes in his stead. The combat system in Kingdom Hearts is good, but not quite as polished as it would become in Kingdom Hearts 2, but more on that in the next video. The combat consisted of pressing X and jumping with the circle button, and some magic too, but I never really used it much in the first Kingdom Hearts. You can use the other buttons to map certain spells to them for easy access, and it helps keep the combat fast-paced. But really, in all seriousness, the combat system was pretty solid, and the inclusion of a lock-on system did wonders for it. The game would have been a lot more frustrating had that feature not been included. I personally prefer the system to the usual JRPG format of fighting via menu screen. It can be fun with some games, but I like this one because it's faster paced and more visceral while still requiring you to be strategic with your spells and whatnot. And while the main missions and story is fun, there's also plenty of other side quests and stuff to collect throughout the game to keep you playing. For instance, all but 2 of the 101 Dalmatians are missing and spread throughout the various worlds, which you'll find out when you go into their house. And Pongo and Perdita are there, looking sad and...
Oh god, I gotta find all these puppies! And on second thought, that's a lot of work.
Fortunately, you don't have to do all this before you beat the game. You can always go back after the main story is completed and do all this side stuff. Now, let me address the voice actors for the game. There are quite a few surprising names to be found on the cast list, including Haley Joel Osment as Sora, that dude from Seventh Heaven as Riku, Hayden Panettiere as Kairi, Christy Romano as Yuffie, Billy Zane as the villain Ansem, Mandy Moore as Aerith, freaking Angel, David Boreanaz as Leon, and surprisingly, Haley Joel Osment, the Seventh Heaven guy whose name is David Gallagher, and Hayden Panettiere have all reprised their roles multiple times throughout the series. The models actually hold up surprisingly well after 10 years, but it's definitely not perfect. The cinematics, both in and out of game, look great when they're not switching to the gameplay models that don't look very cinematic. It's obvious that a good amount of effort was put into animating the cinematic character models as well, but sometimes they'll just switch over to the gameplay models, which don't look anywhere near as good. Hell, sometimes they do this within the same scene, and it's really jarring. I'm not sure why they had to do this, but it brought the game down when it happened. But when they're full-on animating the characters, it looks pretty cool. Particularly, Donald and Goofy work really well because they move exactly how they should, with Donald having quick, expressive movements and Goofy having a laid-back and happy-go-lucky posture. I have a feeling this was Disney Interactive's biggest contribution to the game, and it really helped it work as a whole.
Now, I'm not gonna give away the whole story. I've just given you the beginning as a teaser, but I will say that from here, the story gets complicated, to say the least.
Apparently, entire sequences were left out of the story because originally Nomura wasn't sure whether or not there'd be enough demand for a sequel and didn't want to leave in plot points he wouldn't be able to follow through on. Of course, this thing became a huge franchise, and the scenes were added into the final mix of the game, answering some questions that would eventually come up in the games to come. And yet, he still left in the cliffhanger ending where... Well, I'll get into the whole overall story in the third video I make for Kingdom Hearts, but if the other games hadn't been made, this ending would have been extremely frustrating.
If you played the game, you know the ending, and if you haven't, you should experience it for yourself. Seriously, the game as a whole holds up surprisingly well. It's really fun to play, and I highly recommend it.
And now a question for you guys to answer in the comments section. What is your favorite Kingdom Hearts game and why? There's a buttload of Kingdom Hearts games that aren't Kingdom Hearts 3 at this point, some with very different gameplay from the original games, and I want to know what you guys consider to be the most enjoyable. Anyway, thanks for watching my episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know by liking or favoriting the video. If you want to stay updated on Gamebrain and more, you can do so by following me on Facebook and or Twitter and subscribing to my channel. If you want to see more videos like this, last week I reviewed Poker Night 2, so go check that out if you feel so inclined. I'm going to cover Kingdom Hearts 2 at a later point in time, and then a study on the entire storyline of the Kingdom Hearts games at an even later point in time. When? I'm not sure, but I hope to have both videos made and released before the year's out. I'll be producing other videos covering different games in the meantime, however, so stay tuned next week when I talk about, something. I don't even know yet, but it'll get posted here. Once again, let me know what your favorite Kingdom Hearts game is in the comments section, and see you guys next week with another episode of Gamebrain.